call on the indefatigable man and general, so to say, the AfICTA Deputy Chair, Mr. Paul Rowney, to take over. Over to you, Mr. Paul.
Thank you, MC. So, yeah, hi, I'm Paul Rowney. I'm the Deputy Chairperson for the Africa ICT Alliance. So I have the honor to moderate this next session. And this session is on sustainable urban planning and smart cities, challenges and prospects. So we all see, you know, this is a dynamically shifting space. So from this session, we're going to learn a little bit about what's going on, what the challenges are, etc. So first, I just want to call to the floor my speakers. Is Dr. Issa Jallow there? I didn't see the doctor.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Okay.
Nice to meet you again.
Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Jallow is the Chief Executive Officer at the Abuja Geographic Information Systems.
Yes.
May I
that was just last month. I retired, so
okay.
Former Chief Executive Officer now.
Chief Executive.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I want to call to the floor my second speaker, Mr. Ario Leonard. Ario Leonard, I see you there.
Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you.
Hope we can hear me very well.
Yes, we can. So Mr. Leonard is with broadcast media development, communications, and social transformation. So this is his area of expertise. And then for our third and final speaker, may I call Miss Christina Buti to the floor, please. Christina, are you there?
Yes, I am. I hope that you can see me and hear me.
Yes, we can see and hear you. Ms. Buti, she is counselor on metaverse and smart cities with the ITU in Geneva. Welcome. So when we look at the panel discussion, we're going to have a short intervention from each of the speakers. We've got some policy areas that we would like to weave into these, or we can address those afterwards if they're not covered in the interventions. But we're looking at how can smart cities reduce environmental impact and promote sustainability, how smart cities can improve urban design and make cities more livable, how smart cities improve urban mobility and make getting around cities easier, and how smart cities ensure that all residents have equal access to digital technology and services. I think when we talk about access, it goes beyond just digital technology and services as well. I think it goes a little deeper than that. So I'm not going to take up any time. I'll come to my questions after the interventions. I'm going to start with Dr. Jallow, if you're ready.
Yes, I'm ready. Yeah.
Just because
thank you very much.
My list as I received it.
Yes.
Thank you, Doctor.
I just want to share with you our experience on the efforts we have done using GIS, which we believe is a solution that will provide a foundation and infrastructure for the development of the smart city, which we have used in Abuja to manage the city. I have some few slides which I want to share a little bit, if it's okay. Screen one, so. Can you see my slides? Can you see my slides?
I haven't said yet. I see you are sharing screen.
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
Now we can see your Yeah, okay, we're there.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Okay, very good. Now, let me do there. We'll start. Okay. This is what I have. Just to remind us about some studies that were conducted in 2008, which has indicated that the population is rising and a lot of people are moving into the cities, especially in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And this is based on the study of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, which says that by 2030, 60% of the population in these regions will be living in the cities. And this may continue to rise by 2/3 by 2050, which means there is a rapid urban population growth. And therefore, especially we in Africa, we have to try to see how we can manage this population growth by making our cities smart. And this trend is continuing. Recent estimate has indicated that the growth of urban areas in 3 decades of 21st century is greater than the cumulative urban expansion in all human history. Now, these cities also contribute 70% of the global energy use and green gas emissions, occupying only 5% of the Earth's landmass. So we that live in the cities are making a lot of contribution towards the population growth as well as towards pollution of the environment. And because of that population growth in the cities, we have competition for water, for land, building materials, food, pollution control, and especially in developing countries like ours, waste management is a problem. And people are demanding also for better quality of service, economic competitiveness, improved service delivery. They require increased efficiency, and at the same time, would require a reduction in cost. And therefore, we also need to address congestion and environmental issues. Therefore, the need for a smart infrastructure is really critical and can provide a solution to these problems. Now, I want to remind us of the goal 11 on sustainable urbanization, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which clearly states that the cities and human settlements must be inclusive, must be safe and sustainable. There will be no sustainable growth without sustainable urban development. Therefore, the smart cities can play a very important role in this direction. We, ITU, define smart city as an innovative city that uses ICTs and other means to improve quality of life, efficiency of urban operation and services, competitiveness, and it must be able to meet the present and future generation with respect to economic, social, and environmental aspects. Now, for developing countries versus developed countries, if you compare that, in developing countries, we need to provide urban infrastructure, which is very critical. We need roads, we need water, and so on to meet up with the urbanization. And therefore, we need to develop new smart infrastructure for such cities to enable us to leapfrog into technology. In developed countries, the challenge is to maintain the existing legacy infrastructure systems, and that cannot be abandoned due to cost, space, and other considerations. And also focus is on facilitating optimal use of existing infrastructure resources and monitoring the operations. Therefore, both primary motive is that the smart infrastructure applications that we are deploying should respond to sustainable development needs of the society. For developing countries, yes, we are developing infrastructure. It will be easy to roll out smart infrastructures so that we can be able to leapfrog. So we need to take advantage of that, especially in Africa. Now, I have this adopted smart city layers, which clearly indicated that the land component, we need to now take control of our land component. So we need to have a computerized cadastre, whether it's physical cadastre, you need to have a proper land register and mapping. This provides the foundation for the development of a smart city and for sustainable management of our cities, for urban management. Without having to take control of that, it will be difficult to control development, it will be difficult to plan. And computerizing the cadastre provides the baseline for future development. of the city. Then this also provide information for planning. And as a result of that, you can have a physical infrastructure development. Then the digital infrastructure will come in for the management of the city, and then connectivity can be provided. And then you can deploy your IoT sensors, automation will come in, and data analytics. I believe by going towards proper management of the land using technology, it provides a baseline, a foundation. It provides a roadmap towards the urban development that we need. So if you have a very smart infrastructure, I know we need a smart governance. Our government should be very smart in terms of how we deliver services. And that will also enable the people that live in the urban areas to be very smart. And once they are smart, then there will be smart mobility. And then the economy will be smart in terms of development, and people will have a smart living. Then they will also have a smart environment to live in. And we need to therefore ensure that there is connectivity, ICT infrastructure are up and running. We need to leverage on the advancement in renewable energy technology. And then we generate data that we need. Intelligent use of such data, can then optimize our resources for improved performance. And that will lead us to sustainability. Therefore, we think geospatial technology is the central pivot to providing such platform for development of a smart city and for sustainable management of a city. Nigeria's population is growing. We are estimated to over close to 280 million. And this, we are now ranked 7th. And most of the people live in the urban areas. This is based on statistics. This is Abuja city that requires for us world-class city development is ongoing. It requires proper management of the land resource to be able to sustain the future development of the city. These were some of the problems we encountered at the early stage before the computerization of the land records. There were lack of synergy among stakeholders, multiple allocations, forgeries, bodies unauthorized were issuing letters, problems of obsolete survey equipment and so on, and inefficient revenue. So the GIS provides solutions to address these issues, and we are able to produce products that are required for the urban management and so on, and planning and for decision making, and records were properly kept. For example, you can do using remote sensing technology to track changes in the environment. This is a typical example of how we use change management, change tracking to monitor developments in the city. We can also use remote sensing technology using the digital elevation model to be able to know the gradient that will enable us to do planning, physical planning for the physical development of the city. In addition, also the water bodies, the Lower Osman Dam is the main body of water that provides water, drinking water for the city. Using the digital elevation model, we are able to monitor the status of the water, as well as also we have on the left, this is the deployment of the telecommunication mats. You can see that the mats are reducing by gradient as you go from the top, from the right to the left. This technology is what is being used to manage the city. We also have some workflow applications for city planning and management, which will be useful at a dashboard to monitor the land titles, which can also accommodate other smart infrastructure that will provide information for sustainable management of the city. You can have a business analysis dashboard for planning and monitoring, social activities, traffic lights can also be monitored. Having also a smart water metering and billing analysis system can help in terms of management of the water in the city. Equally very important is fleet management, which we piloted using simple technologies, GPS tracking system. And through a dashboard, we can monitor the movement of trucks from one location to the other using our enterprise GIS applications. And then we can also do payment analysis.
Dr. Jello, are you still there?
Sure. Such technologies are okay, Paul. I'm done.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So for me, you froze. I don't know if that was my internet provided by my smart.
I can see you very well.
Okay, okay.
Am I there?
So yeah, you're there. There's just a question I wanted to pose.
Yes.
When we look at smart cities, and you spoke about water, where often sometimes the demand on water can impact the rural areas where water is being pulled away from rural development. So what can we do to ensure that both rural development and urban development are equally recognized?
Well, if you do proper planning at the beginning, if you have baseline data in terms of planning, if you have adequate planning when it comes to physical development, you can address such issues. For example, if you have a water body that is far away from the city, and you can plan to provide water along the line of the trunk lines of the water pipeline to all the locations, villages, and so on that are there. So I don't. For me, I think it boils down to proper planning and having a very good plan with baseline information. I think you can deploy and provide such services, because if you have knowledge of the water bodies that are around, you can provide the infrastructure that is needed to provide water to the villages that are around. Yes, I hope I answer your question.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, I'm now going to call Mr. Ariel Leonard to the floor for his intervention.
Okay.
Ariel.
Afternoon once again. I want to thank us. He took away part of what I wanted to share about Abuja City. So I don't need to go into all that anymore. But I'll pick a few points here and there, because we are talking about Africa here. Smart city, what smart city means for the development world is not the same thing as Jalo. The issues we deal with are totally different. So smart city, if we go by the definition of a smart city, is making the place to be efficient. Now, what we've seen in Africa with technology is that we are trying to copy and paste. Copy what the developed world, smart city is in the developed world, and paste it in Africa, which won't work. We need to be able to make the issues of smart cities to be sustainable. It has to be things that are based on our own situation. Now, taking Abuja, for instance, I've been in Abuja since 1990. That is how many years now? And Abuja was recognized as the first city in the world where roads were constructed before houses were built. As at that 1990, Abuja was recognized as the most planned city in the world. Now, in terms of natural cities that grew up, Paris is definitely the most planned city. But in terms of a new capital, the plans of Washington, D.C., Paris, and Brasilia were brought together, which were among the best cities in the world. And Abuja was planned in that way. The road network planned efficiently, even the water supply, water network, everything done efficiently. Then we did not have this modern day technology that we have to make things smart. So as at that time, 1990, Abuja could be said to be a smart city. Now, over time, you've had population explosion. Trying to accommodating revenue has made the city to grow in a way that it shouldn't be growing. Now, Dr. Jallo has showed us the technology that is in place with GIS. Fortunately, I studied geography in the university, and my postgraduate degree is on environmental and resources planning with special focus on water resources management. And in the course of my study, I had the opportunity of studying the Abuja master plan from cover to cover. What we have currently is totally away from what was designed to be the best city in the world. The only thing was to connect modern day technology to all the processes that had already been put in place, and it will be your modern day smart city. But currently, the challenge Africa is facing is that, one, we do not have that technology to make our cities smart. So, but if we want to say Dr. Jallo said, which is about planning and organization, which we can do with whatever we have. Now, when you're talking about smart city, some of the key pillars is that organization, ability to know where what is, who needs what, which requires a lot of data collection. Currently in Nigeria, a lot of data is being collected, but are we using it well? From the slide shared with Dr. Jallo, you see that information is coming in, but how is that feeding into planning? Then digital infrastructure do not have much of. But then, if you look at the penetration of smartphone, because to me, smart city really means your city in your phone, where you could control everything about your life from your phone. If we look at it, you find out that Nigeria, for instance, is about the fastest in terms of internet connectivity and use of the internet. So we have the population, which we can use as a bargaining tool for either developed countries or big corporations that have the technology to partner with us and provide those technology. The issues that we need to then be looking at are things around the challenges that goes with this thing. When we talk about, for instance, on your life data, the kind of places you go to. For instance, if you look at countries where this thing is being used, if you take, for instance, in Brazil, there's an app used where you are able to identify various land uses, various development issues, changes, which is available to the, and you have the robotic police used for security now. In Ukraine, you have smart apps, which from your home you could monitor trends. In Germany, there's the one for air pollution. In the US, there are cities where you have apps for parking lot, where you would know where there's either to make things easy for you. In China, there's the taxi app in so many places like that. So now where we begin to gather all this data, what happens to your security? Everything about you is known. Now you have issues around cyber attacks. When there's a cyber attack in a system that is not well secured, what happens? And then there's one. In Nigeria currently, yes, Abuja is one city where legislation has gone in place. There's the digitization process for land use and all that. But is there legislation that makes this thing to be accessible easily by the people that need it. You still have to go through, Dr. Jallo talked, government processes. If smart cities are to work, all the processes for getting land, processes for paying your infrastructure dues and everything ought to move very, very smoothly, which is what we don't have. And currently, that is not something that we don't have as a result of lack of technology, but in things work. Then we need to also look at things like affordability. In Nigeria, for instance, Eco Atlantic in Lagos is supposed to be a smart city with all the digital technology. There are several smart apartments that are coming up, some even in Abuja here. But the thing is, how many people can afford that in Africa? It comes with a huge cost. So, and that is where we stop. When we say smart city, we think about you being able to clap your hands and put on the lights in your house. No, what we should be looking at here is in terms of the amenities, infrastructure, water supply. How do we apply it easy for people in a city? That is what we are currently not done. So my point here is that in Africa, if we want to develop smart cities and make them sustainable, we don't have to do copy and paste. Someone goes to Dubai, goes to the Netherlands, you know, all those places where Norway, Oslo, where you have those smart cities and things working well. And then they come back and you just want to apply those technology to a place where we are still struggling to develop and not sustain. That will not work. Rather, we need to look at our people. How do we make processes easy using smart technology to make movement easy for people? Transport system, electricity system, water supply system. How do we apply this technology there? No copy and paste. And then it has to be based on needs analysis. The need is different from the man in Lagos. So a lot of research has to go in, a lot of documentation has to go in, and then the design for cities should be based on the peculiar needs of that particular city.
Thank you, Leonard. I think we need to just wrap up on this so we can move forward.
And when we do this, of course.
Okay.
Hello, I didn't get that.
Yeah. No, we've come to the end of this intervention, so we need to move on to the next speaker. But I think the message is quite clear. You know that we can't copy and paste. You know what works somewhere else doesn't necessarily work elsewhere, and you know we shouldn't be lazy when we're thinking about our smart cities, which have different challenges. Before we come to questions, I want to move over to our next speaker, Ms. Christina Butti. So thank you, Leonard. Christina, the floor is now yours. Your speaker is still muted.
I hope that you can hear me now.
Yes, we can. Yes, thank you.
So thank you. I think I'd like to build on the interventions that were previously made by my fellow colleagues, and I think that you know, certainly when we look at smart cities in Africa, probably it's true that you know, there are many challenges, but there are also great opportunities that are brought by, you know, digital transformation and this trend that, you know, in a sense, the fact that we need to accelerate processes to provide an holistic approach when we look at cities. And each city is unique, and it is unique in developed and also in developing countries. So definitely, while sharing best practices is something absolutely important, that doesn't mean that the copy and paste affectionately actually works. So as it was mentioned by Leonard, definitely that's not the right approach. But I also believe that the overall concept of smart cities is really to be seen into a broader concept where the cities in Africa, they have an amazing opportunity to start a new digital transformation journey. They have the opportunity to really set their, vision, identify their targets, envision and work together with stakeholders to build consensus and look at how they can build cities that they match the needs of their inhabitants, how they can also ensure that there is in place an evaluation and progress monitoring, how we can make sure that there is accountability and responsibility into the actions that are being taken, especially by policymakers. And when we look at this journey, especially, when we look at how to make cities smart and more sustainable, that has to be considered a journey, the beginning, not an end point, where you set realistic targets, you explore how data, technologies, and tools can be best used to make informed decisions, how you can have citizens engagement, how you can ensure that you have partnership development, how you can have an impact assessment in your city that, and how you can look at innovative ways for finance resources. This is really, a set of key ingredients that, needs to be put in place when a city starts its journey to become smart and more sustainable. And these are two things that they have to go hand in hand. A city cannot be smart without, taking into consideration environment. Of course, we need also to ensure that, in the use of technologies and in, looking at, the key elements that they were, highlighted before, for example, when we were talking about, proper planning, when we were, discussing affordability, ensuring that technology is available, ensuring that actually basic services are available. These are, without any doubt, the key necessary steps that the city has to take. And then, that's how, you have an amazing opportunity, especially in Africa, to leverage also some of the mistakes that have been made elsewhere, which sometimes are, so powerful learning lessons where you can really benefit from mistakes made in other cities and not do the same. How we can make sure that, for example, data that are being gathered are used and they don't remain in silos. So how we can leverage, for example, international standards to ensure that we build cities that are safe, that are secure, that, that allow for interoperability, that ensure that technologies can work together seamlessly, and also how we can make sure that, the city itself, is able to respond to the needs of its inhabitants. That is a process that cannot be done in isolation. This is not something, this is really a process that involves many stakeholders, that involves actually a policy visions which is set, and where there is also an investment at the policy and regulatory level, because it's also clear that you need to put in place the right policies and strategies to ensure that a city, can flourish in the right direction. Now, the ITU, which is the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs, has been doing a lot of work assisting cities worldwide, including actually also in Africa, and that's one of the, I think that's one of the reasons why, for example, we have made available all the standards that have been developed by the ITU for free. How, we have been providing a set of resources, including toolkits, including different guidelines to cities to ensure that actually they use and maximize actually their use, when it comes to the planning of their cities. We are actually working also on a project with cities that helps them to assess the environment and smartness of a cities and the progress towards which and the cities is achieving the SDGs through the implementation of a set of key performance indicators. All of these activities have actually helped many cities worldwide to ensure that, when a specific project is developed, it is actually developed to address challenges and not simply because it is one of the nice ideas that can come from the think tank of the mayor in that specific city. So this is, I think, extremely important when we look at the overall process of a journey that a city has to take in becoming smart and more sustainable. And for us, it's not a matter of simply assisting cities, but is accompanying them actually along their journey. And I think that upgrading infrastructure and services, ensuring that the necessary policy and regulatory framework are in place, fostering innovations are key. In saying that, I think that there are, certainly a lot of challenges that still needs to be faced in the African continent, but there is also tremendous opportunities that needs to be tapped. And I think that, that is something that should not be neglected, on the contrary, maximized. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. I just want to remind everybody that they need to post their questions on the Q&A module so that we can better manage time. So if you have a question to a panelist, post the question on the Q&A, and if it's to a specific speaker, just mention the name of the speaker. I'm going to call Dr. Melissa Sassi to the floor for a short intervention. Melissa, are you there?
Oh, I guess it would help if I took myself off of mute, right? Okay,
Yep.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
yes,
super. Awesome. Let me just share my screen real quick. If you could enable that, that would be super.
All right, please go ahead.
Okay, let's see if it's working now. Ah, there we go. Super. Okay, can you see my screen all right? It should be, it should say smart cities. Paul, can you see it? Okay.
Yes,
I just want to make sure.
yes.
Yeah, okay, super. Give me, since we have about 5 minutes for mine, just do me a favor and give me a 1 minute warning. I'm not going to repeat some of the things that have already been said. I do have a presentation, but I think the past speakers have done a great job of speaking about some of the considerations, and you'll see some of that stuff here. But I think, as everyone mentioned, smart cities are not just about tech. It's not just about being smart, if you will. It's really thinking about what's your vision, and what is that North Star? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve, versus having a bunch of a checklist of what you're supposed to do. I think one of the things that I like to think about when I think about smart cities is, obviously you've got tech enablement, sustainability, things need to move efficiently. We need to improve people's lives, but it's about living, working, and play. And we've got, all kinds of things to consider. We've talked about many of those things today. And I think I'm going to kind of hone in on a couple things that may not have been, kind of addressed so specifically, even though I know it's part of everybody's, thought process. And that's, what is the quality of life for, citizens? And how do we make sure, as some of the other speakers shared, that we have, affordable housing, viable employment, green space, a place where people, are going not because of the tech enablement, but because of the wider, opportunity that's available. As everyone mentioned, it's not about taking a blueprint of what happened in South Korea with their smart city, or, with whatever's happening in Saudi Arabia with what they're building. But it's really about looking at the wants, needs, goals, and objectives of its citizens. So, for Africa, with Africa, and by Africa, and that's on a city-by-city basis versus, thinking about it as, a holistic solution that is kind of a cookie cutter approach that happens everywhere. And, we've already kind of elaborated on this being, citizen centric. It's got to be innovative, though. What kind of data points can you use, and making sure that it's open, people have access to the data, and there's collaboration across, a variety of stakeholder groups, from, public sector, private sector, civil society, what have you. And really enabling citizens to be, part of, making sound decisions where, ones are thinking about, economic, the economic, social, political, and environmental well-being, not just of the citizens, but of the, of the country as a, as a whole. And naturally, that means you've got to have, access to folks with skills that are able to implement and envision, the things that, need to be done. And that often requires, making sure that there's quality management, and it's sound, there's good governance. What are some of the pitfalls? We've heard about population surge. There's an impact on culture, and I'm not so sure that I heard, a lot of conversation around that. But, when you're thinking about a lot of rural communities having different cultural elements that make their village or their tribe or their whatever, special, how do you maintain that as rural citizens move to cities? And how do you make sure that you're not exacerbating a rural brain drain, meaning how are you keeping your rural communities safe, secure, alive, and prosperous? Where do you start? Obviously, there has to be, an evaluation of, what do you have now? It has to be integrated into a development plan. I'm a big fan of pilot projects, testing and learning, and again, engagement, data, and making sure you know what your North Star is, and you're measuring against that. There's a phrase that I learned recently from an amazing woman who focuses on smart cities in one of the other UN branches beyond the ITU, and she often speaks on, nature positive business and policy making. If that's not a term that you're familiar with, check it out. It is really about not just how are we going about doing what we're doing because it's supposed to be done, but how are we not only making sound decisions, but we're being nature positive? How are we not only focusing on profitability and revenue and business decisions, but we're also contributing toward the safety and well-being of a long-lasting planet. So again, I know this was quite short. I wanted to zip through it and not be too repetitive. So thank you very much for allowing me to take the time.
Thank you, Melissa. Very, very insightful. So I want to go back now. We have some questions from the floor that I want to pose to our speakers. The first question is, whose responsibility is it to provide a smart city? And I wanted to pose that to Dr. Jallow, if he can give any thought on that. Dr. Jallow, are you there?
Sorry, I'm muted. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes. So just to repeat the question,
is there has to be the leadership. The leadership should provide the drive towards the development of the smart city. And it has to also provide the enabled environment to partner with the private sector. And also to be able to support that development of the smart city, the leadership will also have to provide policy and regulations, and then also funding. Because for the city to be smart, the government must have to be smart, and the government will have to deploy the necessary infrastructure that is needed, and also to clear the way for the private sector to come in. For example, if you have a city, you need to provide the docks for the deployment of connectivity. And therefore, it's the responsibility of the government to give the right of way for fiber connectivity and so on, and also to regulate the activity of ICT service providers.
Okay, thank you. Just a follow-up question that's also come from the floor.
Yeah.
Is we talk about smart cities, and our cities want to be seen as smart, but often it's not inclusive. So it might be smart in some areas where we're providing certain smart services, but not across the whole city. So what is the threshold? What actually determines whether a city can be classified as a smart city, or a city that's aspiring to become a smart city?
Is that coming to me, or?
Yeah, it's a follow-on question to you.
Okay, can you come again, please?
Yeah, the question is really about how do we classify a smart city? Because we talk about smart cities, but are the cities smart, or are they aspiring to be smart? And the smartness is spotted around the city, but it's not. It's partially or something.
Yes.
If that question makes any sense.
Actually, for a city to be smart, it must have all the smart infrastructure. And also, on the basis of that, we know what we call the smart infrastructure. It has to be there. GIS is one of those infrastructure that you need, which is based on ICT technology. And then also, the city must be able to provide services to its citizens in a smart way. In the area of transportation, there should be some smart mobility around that. And then also in the area of security, to have some smart environment, well protected, and with a smart living. Although I think there are standards for assessment of a city, whether the city is smart or not. I think those standards will have to be applied to do a critical assessment on how smart a city is. Yep. However, like some of the speakers said, in Africa, we cannot assess ourselves based on the international standard. Maybe we need to develop our own standards for the assessment of those cities in Africa that have a roadmap towards becoming a smart city. So we need to develop our own standards that we call standards for assessment for a smart city development, because we are not yet there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question, and I'd like to pose this one to Mr. Leonard. And the question is, it's a perspective. Someone's perspective is that maybe the cut and paste approach is not a bad idea, considering the lack of R&D and available resources around technologies. So I just wanted to get your perspective on that. Is there a role for taking some best practice, or taking the entire blueprint, or completely throwing that blueprint out? Maybe if you could just specifically focus on that.
I think for Africa, where we have myriads of problems, it has to be step by step, and it has to be sectorial. For instance, you can copy and paste smart practices in smart in education and apply, but you can't copy and paste smart practices from somewhere and bring down here. It's going to be very, very difficult to work because the foundational infrastructure is still lacking in Africa. So we need to take it step by step. For Abuja City, for instance, with the kind of plan it has, the master plan and everything, there's already a foundation that can be built on. Now, if you take other cities in Africa, there are only few that will have the kind of plan Abuja has. Cairo, for instance, is doing well. I think it's one of the best to be smart cities in Africa. Rwanda's Kigali is coming up, even though main reasons why Abuja is not able to be smart because the population is just something else to manage. So I don't think copy and paste the whole thing will work, but copy and paste for specific sectors would work. You see good thing there, you bring it here. If we have where we could apply it, you apply it. And Abuja already has a very good master plan for something that we can start working on. The government will just be and make it sectorial.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you, Leonard. I have a question to Ms. Booty, and maybe we can get a bit of a global perspective on this. When you're looking at cities in Africa, there's the complexity of mass urban migration, which puts a lot of demand on services. So with cities striving to be smart, how effective can this be, considering those unique challenges that these cities have, that is not necessarily the case in the more developed parts of the world? Christina.
Thank you. Thank you for a very interesting question. Well, I think that indeed, this is one of the probably unique challenges that the many African countries are facing. But I also think that, going back to what Melissa just mentioned in one of her last slides, I think that one of the first things that you need to know is, where you are. It's so critical for a city to understand where you are at that moment. When you start your smart journey, you need to know where you stand. And that's a key point. It's really very difficult to keep going in the same way. And I'm very, very critical on this point. You cannot address the, for example, migration as a problem in silo, because that will affect, the entire population that you have that city. It will affect basic services, water, electricity, housing, even the delivery of education. So it has to be considered in the overall new vision and plan of the city. If you have a master plan, it's a good step. If you don't have it, start, analyzing where you are at as a city. I would like also to add one important point, and maybe for a moment, if you can allow me just to share my screen for a moment. I would like just to give you an example of, a city actually in Africa, when we talk especially about the fact to know where you are at. So this is really, sorry, maybe you're seeing the wrong screen. So let me put it. When you look, for example, at the example of Kiebi in Ghana, if you look, this is an assessment that we did in a city in Ghana to know exactly where the city stands in terms of its smartness, its sustainability, which are the areas that requires immediate attention, which are those that are somehow doing better than others. And I think that this is step number one. To know how do you deal with that specific problem. Migration, yes, it is a unique challenge, but also I think it's really a moment when the city itself can start to rethink on how it wants to evolve, whether, it wants to become a place, a better place for its citizens. And yes, if you have, for example, definitely an area that you see it highlighted in red, well, it's critical that it becomes your priority number one versus definitely an area in green. And these are, for example, this is an international standard that is actually developed by TITU and that is being applied worldwide to more than 200 cities, regardless of their size, their location, their, economic situation. So there is a possibility actually to do a proper assessment and to know, the step number one for a city, which I think for me, it's really the first step for a city to be able to do a proper to prepare a proper response to any critical issue that it has. And that brings me back also to some of the other for example, consideration in terms of how a city is able to respond, or who is whose responsibility is. Well, yes, there has to be certainly a political vision, but on the other hand, can you do this alone? Can the leadership do this alone? No, you can't. The model to be successful has to be participatory. And this is one of the lessons learned, from many developed and developing, countries. And I think this is really crucial for African cities, as I said, to learn from the mistakes that have been made by many cities in the developed countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. And I think that makes it clear, understanding where you are helps you determine how you need to get to where you want to get to. Melissa, we have a question for you. And that is, how do we preserve and maintain our natural habitats, being our traditional settings in the digital age, without losing our identities to the smart city or smart living?
Super. So thank you for the question. I think it was Florence. So thank you. One thing before I get to that, I want to just say one thing that kind of always grounds me when I think about whether it's a city I'm looking at, whether it's myself or anyone else. It's, try not to compare your chapter 5 with someone else's chapter 25. And I think that again goes for us personally, as well as, our evolution as we get to, building smart cities. Everybody's in a different place. So yeah. Okay. So I think when it comes to, smart living, I think it's almost up to, I'd love to say that there's this, again, one size fits all of how do we preserve our natural habitats? How do we preserve our culture? And I think, it makes me think about when, quite a few years ago, I was working on my dissertation for my PhD, and I had spoken to a gentleman from a Native American tribe in the US. And, he, grew up, and he's Navajo, and, in his home, he did not grow up with internet access, and, he did not have running water, really intelligent individual. And he received a scholarship to go to Harvard. And he knew that he had kind of a choice of where do I go? Where do I go in my future? Do I stay here and stay connected to my culture and my tribe and all of the elements that make me me? Or do I go out and foster my education? And I say or because when he left, he chose to go to Harvard. And when he left, he had no connection to his family. Maybe once a month, he was able to speak with them. And, he felt this loss of, kind of his identity in some way. And I think that's, very relevant when you think about people moving from a rural community, whether you're, in a Native American tribe or whatever, whatever you have in your hometown. And one of the things that he did is, he started a number of different, groups for, folks like him to stay connected. And he started a number of activities to, localize certain texts that were appropriate to be localized and put online and made available to people. because it helped him stay connected, and that in turn helped others stay connected. You know, I think it's up to each and every one of us, you know, as citizens, as we are, you know, supporting and fostering the development of urban environments, to have a voice, have a stance, because if we rely on someone else to do it, you know, who is that going to be, and is it going to be someone? And if no one stands up, what do we have? And I think the same goes for making sure that we've got, you know, green spaces and still the connection to, you know, rural communities. Is that a blueprint? Is that, you know, kind of a roadmap of what to do? Probably not, but I think it's kind of like, if not me, who? If not now, when? You know, one of those conversations that we all need to take a, you know, take a stance and a role, and not rely on someone else to do it for us. So thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Okay, I'm going to go back to Christina now and pose a question. I'm working backwards now. I worked forward, started with the men, now I'm starting with the women. So Christina, and you have about 2 minutes, 2-3 minutes because of time. But how can sustainable urban planning strategies be developed to integrate informal settlements into the fabric of smart cities, ensuring inclusive growth and improved quality of life for all?
Wow, thank you. Thank you. That's a very important question. I think that to effectively integrate informal settlements into the fabric of smart cities and ensure, you know, inclusive growth, improved quality of life for inhabitants, a multifaceted and participatory approach to sustainable urban planning is essential. So I believe there are several strategies that can be employed, from, you know, community engagement and participation, upgrading infrastructure and services, policy and regulatory frameworks. So develop, for example, and implement supportive policies and regulations, and also technology and innovation. So leveraging smart technologies for better services deliverable. So digital infrastructure for education, healthcare, access to information, and then, you know, ensure that, for example, development initiatives are really environmentally sustainable and socially inclusive. So, you know, these are, I think, some of the, you know, I would say key ingredients. So by entertaining these strategies, sustainable urban planning can integrate informal settlements into really the city, fostering inclusive growth and especially enhancing the overall quality of life for all inhabitants. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. Right on time. Okay, my next question is going to be to Mr. Leonard. So again, 2-3 minutes max. So from your perspective, what would be the #1 policy that could be implemented to bridge the digital divide in the context of smart cities in Africa, that ensures that you know, these smart technologies are accessible and beneficial to all? Leonard, are you there? You're on mute. You're on mute.
Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Did you get the question?
Yes, I got it. I think one of the key issues with smart cities, the issue of suspicion. You know, it has to do with information, it has to do with data. So I think one of the key policies that governments could do, just like the EU has done, and the UK and so on, is to work on the digital protection policy, where you can be sure once that is done, it's a lot easier. The context of smart city becomes acceptable to everyone. Because if citizens don't accept it, because to make a city smart, you need a lot of data, a lot of information. So people need to be willing to give out their data and be sure that their data is safe. So you could use that data to plant in Africa, need to work on. And may I add also, the other thing that is lacking with implementation of smart cities in Africa is the understanding of what it is. Just like I gave an example of Eco Atlantic City in Lagos, which is supposed to be a smart city. We built unique estates, even in Abuja here. And what we think about smart city is for you to be able to turn off your light with a device and home services, making things accessible for people. And that understanding is currently lacking. I do development communication. So we need to be able to communicate that properly to citizens in Africa so they understand what smart city is, especially those in government settings. So they know how to apply smart technology to making services and processes a lot easier for the citizens.
Thank you, Leonard. Now, Dr. Jallow, considering the unique environmental challenges faced by African cities, what policy frameworks and innovative approaches can be adopted to promote sustainable urban planning, balancing the need for economic development with environmental conservation and climate resilience? Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is no doubt that we need policy, as most of the speakers said, policy around having to digitally transform our systems, especially in governance, as well as private sector, so that the policy should be able to drive that digital transformation. And the policy should be able to come up with a strategy for the transformation. And at the same time, also, the policy should be able to address this lack of knowledge, lack of awareness of the people, because you need to make people aware about what you are doing. It should be able to also address the issue of capacity within the system of governance, as well as in the private sector, so that people will be trained, people have the technical skills, people have the capacity to now operate a smart infrastructure. And in addition, also, the policy should be able to attract funding, both internationally as well as from the private sector. I believe if we have such a policy like that, it will go a long way towards transformation and sustainable management of our environment. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jallow. So we're coming to the end of this session. We have one last question posted on the chat. I just wanted to see, Dr. Melissa, are you still there?
I am here.
Yeah, I just wanted to pose this last question to you. It's in the chat. But how do we ensure that the smart city transformative agenda protects the data of humans during law enforcement in line with law enforcement directives? Can you just have a 2 minute, 1 minute?
Yeah, I'll just think in kind of from a data protection, privacy, security, perspective. I think it's important that, cities all around the world, not just think about, how does law enforcement protect its citizens, but how do its citizens make sure that it's being, protected from, challenging situations that could arise, due to privacy and safety concerns. Obviously there are, countries around the world that see data privacy very differently. And, personally, I'll speak from a personal perspective, I think there's certain areas in certain parts of the world that, bother me personally, where I don't want to be, tracked doing this, that, and the other, and be on camera all the time. But we know that that is something that happens all over the world. And the way that that's viewed often differs, culture by culture. Who is it me to say, wow, I don't want to be, tracked doing this, that, and the other, where if I'm on the streets of a city in China, that's just kind of what you're going to expect. So I think that has to be evaluated with its citizens, but I think there also needs to be protections in place that, corruption, bureaucracy, and red tape don't get in the way of either protecting people and or protecting those, from nefarious characters, whether that's law enforcement or beyond. And I'm a big fan of making sure that there are technical solutions in place to ensure that folks are not able to, access certain bits and pieces of information. I spent a lot of time, working in data privacy and data security, and there are technical solutions that, can protect, citizens from X, Y, and Z. And I think it's important for cities to understand what are the latest and greatest developments when it comes to data privacy, and speak to experts and look beyond their kind of what might be available at home and think about what's available in the world, because I think when it comes to data privacy, it's moving very fast. And I know I don't want certain things to happen, as do many other citizens. So what can we all do to make sure that cities have the right infrastructure in place to do the right thing, if you will. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sassi. So I think we've come to the end of this session, and I think I don't think we have all the answers. We're learning. I think we're learning collectively, and I think it's important that across the continent, we have open dialogue between the stakeholders, so that we're not all inventing or reinventing the wheel, so to say. And I think we need to keep in mind that when we're developing a smart city, it's got to be for the benefit of all, and not just for a select group within that city. So I would like to just thank my speakers for their very insightful interventions today. Dr. Jallow, Mr. Leonard,
Thank you.
Ms. Buti, Dr. Sassi. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very nice.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you, Paul. You did a
Bye.
great on the spot of the time, and I really give you the heads up. Thank you so much. Okay.
Yeah.
And all our speakers, you are excellent. You were all excellent on spot. And this brings us to the virtual exhibition time. But before we go on virtual exhibition, please take note that there is a poll out there. Technical, please correct me. I think people are responding to the poll.
Sure, yes, it's still on.
Okay. Okay, so it's great to know that people are responding to the poll. I will take our virtual exhibition. We missed the second one, so we're taking this, and it would not be long. Technical, are you ready?
Sure.
Oh, great. So after the virtual exhibition, we will be taking our third panel discussion for today, which will be moderated by our one and only Amazon Ulanda Exna. But before then, let's go for the virtual. Technical, over to you.